look, I block them, and then this bot comes in with another thing, and they know so much about me, which is interesting. I upset a lot of people with my content. So yeah, get on that, and that's the best way. There's loads of questions coming in here already, so why don't I just jump in and answer some of these. How do I deal with the guilt I feel for wanting to distance myself from toxic people in my life? Look, I talk a lot about the guilt that people experience, right? And I think it's important to remember that guilt means that you've done something bad. So firstly, the first thing I say to anybody that feels guilty about having to cut a toxic person of any kind out of their life is to just question whether it is guilt that you're dealing with, or whether what you're actually dealing with is shame, right? You feel bad as a person. You feel like there's something wrong with you for doing what you're doing. That's different to guilt, right? Shame becomes an identity. I think there's something wrong with me. But what I would say is that community in this sense, and this is something that I don't often bring up when I'm talking about guilt, but one thing that I've realized to be really, really important is community. Having people around you that you feel like understand you, so that you can explore what you're experiencing with other people. My page can be really good for that. If you look in the comments section of a lot of the posts, if you flick through some of the abuse that I get from people that it triggers, you'll find there's a lot of people that are going through the same thing. But I really would say that, like, question this guilt thing. Have you really done something wrong, right? Or do you feel like you're a bad person? And listen, toxic people will do this, right? Toxic people will use the fact that you're a good person and that you are going to feel guilty for having to do something like this. So they're going to use that against you, right? It's really important to understand that they're not clever. They're not clever. I'm not going to give them that. But they know what they're doing. They're aware of what they're doing. So they're going to pull on that guilt, and they're going to have been almost scheming and planning this in the background within their relationship with you. And if it's your parents, right, they would have used guilt against you so much throughout your whole life. Yeah, it would have been consistently used against you. So you will grow up feeling guilty all of the time. Yeah. So just be aware of that. So it's so hard to concentrate with these things. I don't want to turn the chat off. I think it comes with the territory now, doesn't it? Why do toxic people cut you out after they betray you? Why do toxic people cut you out after they betray you? Listen, toxic people will have people in their life and use them until they can no longer use them anymore. Their relationships, right, and their bonds and their friendships, or like parental relationships, or whatever it is that they have with you, yeah, it is to serve them. And once they believe it no longer serves them, then they're going to drop you. And you will actually see toxic people will have like new groups of friends pretty regularly, because they will have what they call flying monkeys, which are the people that believe what they say no matter what and will back them no matter what, and will often go out and do some of their dirty work, right? So if they're smear campaigning you, their flying monkeys will do that. But as soon as, if it happens, as soon as these people start to see through the toxic people, then they'll drop them. And you'll see toxic people have a tendency to even move around locations fairly regularly, because people will start to see the reality of who they are. Yeah. And so then they'll drop them, and they'll drop them. And look, it will always be framed as if the person that they're dropping is being dropped because of something that they've done to them. And it will just further play into their victim campaign. But if they can't use it to make themselves seem a victim, then, you know, they'll just brush it under the carpet and move on to the next people. Oh, Helen. Message me, Helen. Are you on a different account or something now? Don't worry, I am blocking these people as they create these new accounts. It must be like a robot that they do it with. I cut off my toxic mother last September. I keep getting abusive emails from her. Fuck's sake. How do I control myself from being triggered by this, please? Don't read the emails. Do not read any contact that a toxic person has with you. Never read any of it. And if you block the emails and stop reading the emails, they'll find another way. They'll send letters and stuff like that, yeah? But they are always trying to find a way back in. The best thing that you can do is not read it. And if something bad happens as a result of that, that's their fault. There's nothing that you can do about that, yeah? But you cannot engage with them, right? They will always trigger you. What they're sending you is designed to trigger you. If they're your parent and you've cut ties with them because it's the only thing you had to do, they know how to get to you. They know the things to say, yeah? And whatever the situation, if you're in a period where you've had to distance, I'll check that out, Helen. If you're in a period of your life where you've had to distance yourself from a toxic parent, right, for a prolonged period of time, you'll find in their letters and in their texts and in their emails or whatever it is, they're going to drag up so much old shit, yeah? They're going to like lace it with half-truths and things that aren't true and enough to trigger you, and it's going to like cause reactive abuse, because what you'll find if you engage with the emails that you're talking about is then you're fucking in it. Right? And you're in it and you're trying to like stop them thinking that, and like, no, you want to make sure they think that's not true and this isn't true. And it's going to be horrendous. Delete it. Don't even open it. If they send letters, chuck them straight in the bin, and block all of their contacts on your phone. Now, this is like, people will think that what I'm saying is extreme, and it probably is. And you know why it's extreme? Because the parents that I'm talking about are extreme. That's the fucking point. Yeah, that's the point. And I get these people that show up on my posts all the time. Yeah, and they're showing up and they're like, you should try reconciliation. Have you ever tried like forgiving them or understanding their trauma? Why don't you try and look at it from there? They're people doing their best. Like, doing that, commenting like that on my posts where I'm very clear and explicit about what I'm talking about, is like walking into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and saying to everyone, you lot should try a little bit of controlled drinking. Have you never thought about that? It's ridiculous. It's stupid. And let me take that a little step further, by the way. Yeah. If you walk into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting saying that everybody in there should try controlled drinking, it's probably because you need to be in there and you haven't yet admitted it to yourself. So that's what a lot of them people that comment on my posts, like the glaring obvious, that's who they are. They're there for a reason, yeah? And it ain't to give that advice. And you hear all those kinds of advice all of the time, yeah? For some reason, people can't be with you in your pain. People can't step in and listen to what you're experiencing, yeah? They want to just tell you that, they did their best and they loved you and all of that stuff, yeah? We need to have real and proper conversations about this. Because if you grew up, not just with a toxic parent, but if you grew up in any kind of dysfunction, you probably had any adults, if any adults knew, any adults that knew would always try and wrap it up in a nice bow for you. Yeah. You would have probably had no shortage of people that would, say everything's going to be all right. They would give you silver fucking linings around the cloud and tell you it makes you stronger and you got through it and at least you had a mum and dad and all of that stuff. Yeah. There'd have been no shortage of that. I guarantee you what you would have been lacking is somebody that helped you fucking look at the truth of your experience. This is awful, what you're experiencing. And it's no surprise that you feel awful. Yeah? This is like, and this is what we're lacking in our society, is people that can be with people in their difficult experience without having to try and fucking wrap it up. Now, don't get me wrong. I love all of that perspective stuff and it's great to be able to do that. Yeah, in the future, but it can't, when it comes at the expense of validation, it's wrong, Let me go to the next one. I owe my toxic parent money. Should I pay it back? Sorry, I'm only laughing because my first response is no, fuck them. Yeah. But listen, it will probably be weaponized against you. I would say, personally, if you can afford it, give the money back and don't have any ties left to them whatsoever. Take your money and get the hell out, yeah? Otherwise, they've always got a reason, yeah? They've always got a reason. That's what I would say. I'm no contact with my dad for 4 months. Didn't invite him to my daughter's 9th birthday on Sunday. Mum told me she was happy that I have set boundaries now, but then followed it up with, it's not fair. I'm using her as a weapon to hurt him. Yeah, I think this is where it's difficult, yeah, because, and this is why a lot of people are saying give the money back, yeah. I agree, by the way, and that's why I laughed, because my first thought was, nah, don't keep the money. This is why, despite people thinking sometimes that I give lots of advice about cutting parents out, I never give any advice in that front. I don't, right? what I try to do is support people where they're at and what they're experiencing. So every family's different, right? And if you've got one toxic parent, then you're going to have, if that toxic parent is still with somebody who isn't toxic, they're still going to be caught up and wrapped up in this stuff, right? So putting in boundaries in place with the toxic parent is going to affect your relationship with the other parent, right? And then that becomes really difficult as well. So this is why I will always try and support people to navigate it in the best way that they can, right? And I'll say, it's really, really hard. They're back. They keep trying to request to join the live with me. Maybe I should do that. I'm a thief. It says I'm after the money, which is always a good place because they often come in here to say that Breathing Space, which is my online community where you can find my whole breathwork library. We do regular sessions. I pay different facilitators to come in and show different modalities of healing. Tonight we've got Vicky in there, for example, and she is coming in to deliver an hour session on rapid resolution. We have at least 3 or 4 external speakers every month. Once a week we come together in a sharing space. That is £10 a month, £12 a month, or £15 a month. You get access to everything with all of those charges. Same access with all of them. You pay whatever you can afford. If you pay £10, you can cancel straight away. No more money will be taken, and you'll have the whole month. I appreciate somebody says I don't have to explain myself. I know that, but I use it as a good example to advertise what I do. And actually, while we're here, the one thing that is really, really important to me is to try and make all of the stuff that I do accessible to everybody. There's a lot of stuff out there that wants you to think that you've got to, end up in Bali with no shoes and socks on, and you haven't done real healing unless you've paid thousands and thousands of pounds to go on this, retreat where you was in the mountains and all of that stuff. And all of those things are great, right? They're amazing. I think they're brilliant, right? And I think everybody should try them, but you don't have to do them and you don't need to do them. Yeah. They're not it's not a competition. Healing work is about reflecting inward, and you can do that in your fucking bedroom, despite what people on Instagram are telling you and how much money they want you to spend on their course, yeah, or a course, or posturing that, they went to Bali. The people that need this work, and I get a lot of stick, by the way, in the breathwork space, right, because of the language that I use. And that's I try and be I'm just a fucking normal person, yeah? And I want normal people to get this stuff. And when I first looked at this stuff, and when I was first wanting to go on this journey, I weren't doing any of that. I didn't have any money to go to a retreat, yeah? And all that sort of stuff. So I always want to make it as accessible as I can. Bali's not what it used to be years ago. Yeah, I can probably imagine. I've never been there, right? And I'm probably speaking from a place of slight jealousy as well, that I've never been there. But my point is, and somebody said here, thank you, I've been discouraged because I can't afford all the fancy stuff. You don't need the fancy stuff. You don't need it. You don't need to go. Look, retreats are amazing. I think they're amazing. And I think people can have massive experiences. But you don't have to do these. You don't have to do them. You don't have to do them. If you reflect inwards. And listen, and I do lots of free breathwork sessions. And the reason that I do them for free, pretty regularly, is because I want you to know that you can do this stuff on your own as well. And a lot of people will get it's sacred work, you shouldn't be doing it on your own. And it is sacred work. But I think the main reason people say you shouldn't do it on their own is because they want to make you pay to do it with them every time. Do toxic people ask, am I toxic? Only if they think they need to in front of people. This is what I say to people, toxic people, they never think that I'm talking about them. Yeah, because they'll never reflect. Can I take you on a date? I'm married. I don't think my wife would be very happy if I did that. So afraid of repeating behaviors I've been subjected to. How do I stay vigilant of toxic behaviors I might have learned while holding self-compassion? So really, really good question. Look, let me say this quite clearly, yeah? We all have toxic traits. And I talk about toxic parents, yeah? And there's nothing worse than when I kind of come round from being in the moment as a dad myself, and realizing I've done something or behaved in a certain way that I might have talked about being damaging to children, or I might have recognized that was damaging to me when I was a child, yeah? And here I am doing it, right? Now I either go to myself, you know what, I'm a fraud, like talking all this stuff online, and look who I am, you know, what if people came into my home and saw how I am with my kids sometimes? But let me tell you this, I have never ever said that parenting isn't hard, and I've never ever said that you should be getting it, you should be fucking nailing it as a parent. I think if you do it 20% of the time, I think you're doing really well. I probably get it right 20% of the time, maybe even less. But here's the difference, yeah? As much as I can, I sit with my kids, yeah, and I say, listen, I know I'm flawed, I know I make mistakes, and I revisit, and I say, you know, like yesterday, I'm sorry, man, and I know that I keep saying sorry, and I know I show up in this way, but I'm doing my best, yeah? We're all doing our best. No, we're not all. Most of us are doing our best, yeah? The parents that I'm talking about are not those people. The parents that I'm talking about, toxic parents, they don't reflect. They never, ever sit down and reflect. They don't. This person that asked the question, yeah, how do I stay on top of it? They don't do what I know you're doing because you've asked that question, which is lay in bed at night and think, oh my God, I did it again. Like, oh my God, why am I like this? I can't get to sleep. Tomorrow, I hope I can be a better person, yeah? They don't do that, ever. And loads of them follow me, by the way, and I get emails from toxic parents and messages from toxic parents all the time, yeah? And I read them and I can almost tell straight away, you know, because they say things like, I am sorry for any of the pain that they say that I've caused them. And I'm like, hang on a minute. And this is what toxic people do, yeah? This is what toxic people do. They use half-truths. They take the truth and they'll drop one or two words out and that will completely change the sentence, right? And they fucking know what they're doing, right? They know what they're doing. It's very manipulative. It makes it very difficult for you to argue against, yeah? Because they know what they're doing. And that's why sometimes you'll see me on my content responding very clear with no room for maneuver, yeah? Clear. What do you say about that? And they don't like that because they don't like being exposed, yeah? It needs to really work that way, yeah? Anyway, projecting, they are the master projectors, yeah? And that's the thing, right? If you grew up with a toxic parent, everything that they are is things that they would have called you throughout your whole life. So it's no wonder you've grown up questioning, am I the toxic one here? And I do it, by the way, still. Let me say that before I go on to the next question. I do that. I sit here sometimes and think, maybe, like, am I the toxic one? Because I see so many toxic people online, yeah? Like, so many. Big accounts, man. Big accounts that are sharing stuff. And then you don't have to dig very far and you think, whoa, man, I don't know. I think you're one of them, yeah? So, of course, I sometimes think, am I? Especially when I react badly to like a comment. So, because like some days, yeah, I go on my profile and I can't see the good comments. I just see the people being horrible, yeah? And there's fucking a lot of them. And some of them, like, they attack you. A toxic person attacks your character straight away, right? They don't attack they don't attack your opinion. And then when you defend your character, they go, whoa, don't be upset that you have a difference of opinion. Which this is why it's manipulative, yeah? Because a toxic person will not allow a difference in opinion. So when they attack your character and then you try and defend yourself and then they say, whoa, you know, it's only a difference of opinion, then you think, oh my God, like, so back to what I was saying, sometimes I can only see the bad comments. And then what happens is you'll have somebody who genuinely does just have a difference in opinion. And then because you've read 6 comments, that's the one that lands and then you're horrible to them. Do you know what I mean? And then they didn't deserve it. And that's part of life. And that's something else that I really try and be online is like this shit ain't easy, man. And I'm nowhere near perfect. You know, I can talk pretty well about this stuff. I've done a lot of work on myself. I've become very aware of who I am. But fuck me, man. Come in my house and watch me for 3 days and you'll be like, this bloke's a mess, yeah? But I think we are messy. I think that's the point. I think as humans, we are messy, yeah? And there are little periods where I'm waking up at 5 and I'm smashing my routine and I'm like, you see the scientist, who's the guy who's great online at the moment, I think he's brilliant, but he's like, do this first thing in the morning and your metabolism goes up and your dopamine levels go, and I'm fucking nailing it, and it's like 3-4 weeks and everything's going fine, and then life catches up, yeah, and because things are fine, I stop doing this stuff, and then I'm crazy again, and then I have to come back to myself and do the work, yeah. I'll try my best to never show up online doing this stuff perfectly, and I feel like I'm failing people if I do that. Right, let's come back to some more questions. My parents did it, then my ex, due to his addictions, etc. I've been pulled through the bush backwards. Yeah, I think a lot of people will relate to that. Hang on a minute. So please keep this anonymous. Yeah, they're all anonymous. How to handle when a toxic person blames not taking personal, emotional accountability due to fear of trauma. Now the person is aware of the issue and how it's negatively affecting the relationship. How do I handle when a toxic person blames not taking personal, emotional accountability? Look, I don't fully understand the question, but what I will say is this, yeah. People will use your emotional reactions against you, right? That's reactive abuse, yeah. And if I am acting erratic due to somebody's erratic behavior, it ain't fucking me that's got a problem. Yeah, it ain't me that's got a problem. And that's one of the things I don't like online, is that, there's like people that talk about spirituality and they're like, eventually you can reach this place of higher consciousness where you just love everybody and you're unaffected by the things that they say to you. And I think I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Listen, I don't think you can do that in normal day-to-day life. I don't think you could do that. I think life's way more complex than that. And if somebody does something horrible to me, right, and does something really shitty to me, then I'm going to probably react really shitty to it, yeah? I'm not going to sit in the lotus position and be like Zen and be like, I know why you're doing this because you've had a difficult life and I understand you, you dear child. I'm not going to react like that. If somebody's a dick to me, I'm probably going to be a dick back. What I do have in my life today is a bit of an understanding about why so many people are dicks. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Let's do some more of these questions. Well, somebody else has said, why do toxic people come back after they betray you? Because they want to use you again. That's why. Why is someone forgetting almost everything of his childhood? Very, very common in trauma. So it could either be suppression or repression. The difference being suppression, you kind of actively push it down so that it's not there. And repression, I think this is right, is like more that you completely avoid it when it happens. But I think if you grew up in a really difficult, hard environment, then it's natural that you would have tuned out a lot when you was a child. So you're not going to remember a lot of the stuff that went on. It's very, very common for people that have had difficult experiences as children to not remember much of their childhood at all. I don't remember much of mine, and a lot of my healing journey has been about intuition, and actually, they're back, and actually has been about like creating hypotheses about my childhood and understanding, Gandhi's come in with a big one, and understanding how I might have reacted when I was a child. Because I don't have a lot of memory. So I've had to do a lot of filling in the blanks, which has also meant that my sort of experience of my life and my childhood has changed. Right, let me do a few more in this Q&A and then I'll work through the chat. I feel like I've been dropped for calling out toxic behavior by my family. Yeah, 3 months. They've made no attempt to see their granddaughter, niece. As for the first time I've stepped back from trying to force a relationship, am I being punished or is this just them not caring? I think it's a bit of both. Listen, if you grew up in a system and a family that is dysfunctional, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. When you wake up to that dysfunction and start calling things what they are, you're gonna become the black sheep of the family, yeah? Because if the toxic person doesn't care for a start, and they will also want to blacklist you from the family, yeah? Because they don't, they're not going to want anybody to see the toxicity for what it truly is. And then other family members who aren't yet ready to look at what they're experiencing, other family members who aren't yet ready to open up to the dysfunction, they're gonna make you the black sheep as well, because you're calling a spade a spade. And I think that's probably the hardest thing about all of this, and that's why we've got to be caring about each other. Even if you have experienced this yourself, don't push what you did onto other people, because it's not easy. And I wouldn't go against anybody that did anything. If you find yourself going back and forth, okay, I get it, man. I get it. And I understand why you might do that. And especially if you've got people in the family that, you really do love. And so when you're the black sheep and you're walking about, as somebody has said here, holding the mirror up, it's not easy for people. And that's why people, that's why I get a lot of people being triggered into saying stuff on my post, because they don't really know it. But what my post does is hold the mirror up, and they fucking don't like what they see. And if you don't like what you see, it's much easier to point away and make everybody else the problem than it is to look at yourself. Let me read some of this stuff in the chat. I've seen some people have been interacting. What would you do regarding funeral? Would you go? I definitely couldn't go alone if I'm invited. I've seen a lot of different things about the funeral, right? I've seen a lot of different things. I think if you decided not to go, that would be completely understandable. I think if you decided to go and use it perhaps as a place to say goodbye to what you wished you could have had, I would completely understand that too. I think you've got to really, as much as you can, and I think this is true for a lot of our feelings, yeah? I sort of encourage people to do this a lot. If you've grown up in a family with a like toxic parent and stuff like that, you're probably very enmeshed with other people. So you're going to probably find it very difficult to make decisions on your own, right? What you're going to be doing, the voices around your head is, I should be doing this for them, and I should be doing this for them. And, how is people going to react if that? And how is somebody that I don't even know going to react as a result of that? And I think really what you should do is try as much as you can to come into your body. Yeah, really try and think, what do I want? What's going to sit most right with me? And when you're navigating things like this with a toxic parent particularly, it's about what's going to sit best, not what is right. You know what would be right with a toxic parent? For them not to be fucking toxic, right? And for them to just see you for a little bit and fucking show up properly. That's what would be right, the right thing to do. We don't have the option of the right thing to do. So we have the option of trying to make the best of this situation for you, for yourself, yeah? Forget everybody else. And I appreciate people are sharing, and what I always say is, share your experience. Don't tell people what they should do based on your experience. I get it. Some people would say go for closure. What they mean is, I would go because that's how I would get closure, yeah? So it's different. Some people would say, I wouldn't go. I've washed my hands of it. I'd never allow myself to go back. And that's okay. We're all very, very different. Is it normal to fear being like the toxic parent? 100%. 100%. Especially when you know what it was like as a child, and then when you find yourself doing the things that you might have experienced when you was a kid. I mean, that's really, really hard, yeah. And I think most people do. It's the worst part of it. And I like it when, families are really, really hard. The hardest thing about my job and about the work that I do is that I wish I could be as present at home as I am when I'm out delivering my work sometimes. I wish I could find that ability in me to be that present, and sometimes I can't. Or I certainly find it much, much harder when I'm at home. But that's where my trauma plays out. Yeah, my trauma plays out in my relationships. Of course it does. My wounds are about how I love myself and how I allow myself to be loved and how I love other people. So trauma happens in relationships, right? And so does healing. And so that's where the work is. And that's why I think it's great to go and do a retreat, right? In the middle of fucking nowhere, away from life. But if you're doing one every weekend, right, you need to integrate it, because sitting in the middle of nowhere and meditating and doing breath work all day is great, but it ain't real life. And those things as a break are great, and you can do some work on yourself in isolation to then go back and integrate it. But this shit happens in our real life, in our relationships and in our families, you know? And that's where it's hardest. And I appreciate, look, somebody said here that your honesty is admirable. I think it's important, man, because I look at people online, you know, I look at like other people doing breath work or other people talking about healing work. And I think, fuck me, man, like I'm not where they are. And I've been doing this shit for 11 years. I'm like really actively working on myself. Some days I am there, don't get me wrong. Some days I'm like, I've got it all figured out. Yeah. And then some days I'm not, but that's part of being a human. And I think that's like, when I think of like spirituality, I think I'm very spiritual, right? But I think part of my spirituality is not needing to change the way that I appear or how I talk or what I do to make everybody outside see that I'm very spiritual. I have a very connected practice in my life, like a real knowing. I have real depth in that knowing of my spirituality. I don't need to make everybody know about it. Yeah. And I can also laugh and take the piss out of myself. I think that's the highest form of spirituality. I hate spiritual arrogance, spiritual pride, you know, where like people just show up and like, you should just let go, just forgive. And I think like all those things are great. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't do them. If you reach them, I think they're great. But it's not just as simple as going, oh, forgiveness. Fuck me. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Oh, a lifetime of childhood trauma. Brilliant. Let go. Why hadn't I already read that? Let me just let go. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. What else have we got? There's more questions. How do you heal from a narcissistic mother who has suddenly passed? Years of abuse and trauma from her actions has left me with conflicting feelings, motions on her death. Here's what I think a lot of people will feel and experience when they lose a toxic parent, a parent who was trapped in addiction. I think one of the first most prominent things that they will feel, or certainly very early on, is relief. That relief will then be followed by guilt at the fact that you feel relief. And then you're going to have a mixed bag of emotions. And listen, in life we are allowed to feel mixed emotions about things. In fact, I think that's what's missing from the conversation. You can love somebody dearly, right, and hate something that they did. Yeah, you can hate somebody with a passion and still love that one thing about them. And all of these things can coexist together. And hating something that someone did or something about somebody, or like really not liking it, doesn't have to take away from loving them entirely. And that's the truth. And actually, that's where we want to reach, is to understand that we feel a range of emotions. And if you've had a toxic parent and they've died and you had to cut them out because that was the only option that you had and now they've died, I think you're bound to feel a bunch of mixed emotions, and I think all of them are correct and appropriate. How can I deal with... Oh no, we've done that one. Okay, I think I've done all the ones. What are your thoughts on forgiveness? Please, can you talk more on that? Necessary and achievable. Two good questions on the end of it. Forgiveness. Let's start with, is it necessary? My answer to the question is no. Claiming to be... Oh dear, oh dear. Sorry, let me just... They're back again. What did that one say? Connolly sells his missus for money. My missus would beat me up if I even remotely tried to do that. So, let's start again. Forgiveness. Firstly, is it necessary? My answer to the question is no. I don't think forgiveness is necessary. Not always. Now, people will say forgiveness is for yourself. It's not about letting them off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the resentment and all of that stuff, right? Great. I think that is achievable for many people, and I think it's a great way to let go. It's not the only way. I do think that you can go, no, I'm just going to cut that out of my life, and I'm not going to allow it to impact me negatively anymore. I've got lots of people in my life who have been bloody horrible to me, who are still alive, by the way, and I don't forgive them remotely. And I don't feel like I need to. So I think everybody's view of forgiveness is going to be different, right? And I think you should do what works for you. And I think working towards forgiveness is great. I know people that have had amazing experiences of forgiveness, and I think it's amazing. And I hear it and I think, wow, that's incredible. And I'm so glad that it's changed your life in that way. What my concern is how pushy people can be with that forgiveness stuff. And if people are pushy with it and they can't let it go, no, you need to forgive, right? No, you really, no, listen to my point of view. Like if that person becomes uncomfortable with the fact that you don't forgive your parents or you don't forgive anybody, yeah, then that's a red flag that they have an issue themselves with forgiveness, not that somebody else does. That's what I think. And I think sometimes people can really be pushy with it, and that's a problem. My dad died. My dad was an alcoholic and died when I was 9. How are you with your parents? Somebody asked. My dad was an alcoholic, died when I was 9. I don't really remember what he was like as a person. I'm told he was very loving, but I don't really remember. I know he was a violent, angry, chaotic man when he was drunk. I remember that very clearly. And I'm very close with my mum. We have a very good relationship, and I see her regularly. The stuff with the toxic parents that I talk about is not actually because my own parents necessarily. I've experienced it with them. I know people very, very close to me that have experienced it and go through it. Yeah. And let me just say that I think forgiveness takes at first at least an attempt of sincere apology. Yeah, I think that's true. And I'll tell you one thing that forgiveness is not. It's not something that you fucking just go, all right, yeah, I'm going to forgive. Yeah. Forgiveness might be the byproduct of doing a load of work on yourself, and it might not be. And there's no right or wrong, you know? And if you're really uncomfortable with that, then I would question why that is. I feel like forgiveness is saying it's okay, but being resentful keeps me in the past. Yeah, I don't think forgiveness is saying it's okay. I don't think it is. I just don't think it's essential. Especially, yeah, when you're dealing with somebody that... A lot of people, when it comes to toxic parents and forgiveness, a lot of people have like still got this parent alive out there being bloody horrible about them. They might have even cut them out of their life, but they're still going around like a fucking bad smell, making everybody else that you care about hate you, yeah, with the smear campaign. And you want to tell that person that they should be working towards forgiveness. I mean, when the abuse is still happening, I think it's hard, man, and unreachable in that sense. But again, I think everybody's different, right? I think everybody's different. I'm currently in Gabor Mate's Compassionate Inquiry course, which is helping me heal, but it's really hard and yucky. Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? This is the thing about healing work. A lot of people out there will tell you that healing is about forgiving everybody and being able to love yourself and love everybody no matter what. I don't think it is that. I think healing is about being able to love yourself, every single part of yourself, all of the parts. And when you look hard enough, you'll have some bloody parts in there that don't make you feel very good about yourself. You got to look at them and try and find a way to be with them, utilize them, and even love them. Yeah. Then I don't think you do have to love everybody, right? I think it's the highest ideal. I ain't a fucking saint, right? I don't think most people are. I don't think you have to love everybody. I think you have to be able to stand in your power and love yourself enough to say what's right for you and what's wrong for you. To be able to say, you know what, I got a bad feeling about this person. I don't like being around them, yeah? And maybe it is nothing to do with them. Maybe it's something to do with me and a piece of me that I need to work on so that I can be okay with them. Maybe it is. Or maybe it's just that they're a dick. But you know what? Right now, I don't like being around this person in my body. It doesn't feel comfortable and it doesn't make me feel safe. So you know what? They're not going to be in my life. For me, that's healing, yeah? And then I can go away and look at it. Maybe I do need to do some work on myself. You know, sometimes healing is saying, I ain't fucking healed enough to deal with this yet. Maybe it is that as well, you know? But it's about me and my needs. How do I get my needs met? How do I get to be with the people that I care about? How do I get to allow myself to be loved? How do I allow myself to love others, yeah, that deserve it? That's what I think. What do you do when both parents are narcs and because you've spoken out, you're ignored by the rest of the family? Yes, hard, man. This is what I say, it's the black sheep stuff that we were talking about earlier. How are we doing here? 44 minutes I've been on here. Well, I'll do another like 5-10 minutes. I also think having some anger can be an energy to force propel one forward in spite of all the pain. Until there's a reason to forgive, I hold my bag of grudges and use them. Yeah, you know, like, I think anger's good, man. I think if somebody's wronged you and you feel angry, then I think it's appropriate. I'm glad anger exists because look at what Martin Luther King did with his anger. Look at what the suffragettes did with their anger. Everything good that's happened collectively in our society has come from people that were driven by anger, who used their anger wisely. I think people are scared of anger because they think we mean rage. Rage is a byproduct of not healthily releasing your anger. That peace with yourself, what is it truly? I'm numb for the years of trauma and being a parent myself. Is that it's hard? Yeah, I think it's hard. Like, this is why somatic practices can be really useful. Like, I'd really encourage anybody to try things like breath work and look for somatic practices. We do lots in breathing space without plugging that, and well, I am plugging it, but we do lots in there that can be really useful. But somatic work, go on YouTube, put somatic practices. You'll find lots of free stuff on there. Yeah, if you're growing continuously as a person, I think it's highly unlikely you'll be a narc. Yeah, I agree. One of my biggest issues to overcome, how to love and be loved. I think that's the essence of what trauma is, right? How do I love myself? How do I feel safe, you know? Narcissist father here. My mother tried to commit suicide this year because of my father and she chose him in the end. I'm finding hard to forgive her too. And I think that makes sense. And I understand that. And I understand how hard it must be for you and every difficult emotion that can come with that. This is another thing. When people go through difficult stuff, we give the right answer rather than going, you know what, fucking hell, man, that's really hard. And I understand that you must think you must, you know, be feeling a whole bunch of things. Do you have any advice for someone who is realizing they are codependent and want to begin the detachment process? Yeah, you have to understand that codependency doesn't happen necessarily in relationship to others. You need to understand where your codependency comes from. Have you heard of the Lighthouse Cult? No, I haven't heard of them. My family genuinely believe I'm part of it. For a stranger, mind-boggling. I've not heard of it. No, I haven't heard of it either. But I think a lot of people would have to... people will do anything to not have to look at their own toxicity. They will believe anything that they need to believe in order to keep up their own level of toxicity, because to look at themselves is something they will never ever do. So they'll do whatever they need to, yeah, to avoid it. They'll do whatever they need to do to avoid looking at toxicity. It doesn't matter who they hurt, how much they hurt them, how much false truths and lies they have to say, they'll do it. I really would like to speak with you. You have to message me. The best way is email me. I try and get through as much of my DMs as I can, but it's really, really difficult. Oh, I miss these ones. Go back to the factory. I used to work in a factory. It's mental, isn't it? I wonder if that's like somebody is going away and setting those accounts up and coming here to do that. Or if it's just a bot. I assume it must be like some sort of bot that somebody has set up. Right, last one, and then I'm going to jump. Any advice on how to navigate the relationship with others once you've taken the decision to go no contact with a parent? I don't want my sister or nan to feel like piggy in the middle. Yeah. Look, what I would say is to get as clear as you can on your decision, right? So you're able to say to those people, look, I love you very much. I don't want you out of my life. For my own well-being, this is what I've had to do, and here's where I'm at. I'd really like to not make you be piggy in the middle. I'd really like to find opportunities to continue to nurture our relationship and keep our relationship, but this is what I've had to do for my sanity, so it needs to work around that. And know that it's be really difficult and really hard. And that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, I'm going to close this down. It will go on YouTube. It will go on my grid as well. I'll put it on YouTube, and obviously I make loads of reels and stuff like that out of it as well. So there's like smaller digestible content. I think the bot's commenting crap and hugs. Side note, struggling to connect on the live section. If it's inner you based, email me. All right, if you email me, you'll get a response. Don't message me any other way because it's difficult to keep up with my DMs. All right, cool. I've enjoyed this, everybody. Even the scammers. No, not the scammers. That's what they think I am. The bots. Oh, just a quick one. Go on then, quick. Make it quick. Thank you for holding space. Is that what you was going to say? Or are you coming with a question? I think you was just saying thank you. Okay, good. Like I say, you can message me on here, by the way. DMs and stuff. I pick up as many as I can. I just don't get through all of them. So if you're on Inner You and stuff like that, you can email me. That's the best way to have an opportunity or a chance of me responding. All right, cool.